Joined now by Cape Breton Eagles second-year forward Luke Patterson. Getting to know Luke a little bit more, asking some questions, some hockey, some not. We'll start with a hockey one. Luke, who's your favorite player currently in the NHL?
I think it's got to be either Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner. I'm a big Leafs fan, so those are guys that get a lot of ice and make a lot of plays, and really excited to see Domi this year too. I've always liked his game.
You've always been a Leafs fan, correct? So it just happens that you get to see all these exciting players on a team that you already liked, and you're a forward, so you like these big stars up front, right?
Yeah, exactly. Been a Leafs fan since day one. Hopefully some success here soon.
Last year in 10 questions, Luke did predict it was going to be the year that the Leafs did win a playoff series, and they did. Food-related question, which would you rather have, bacon or sausage?
It's a tough one. I think I'm going to have to go sausage. Bacon on something, but sausage alone.
When you get drafted by the Eagles, who was the first player to message you welcoming you to Cape Breton, whether it was a text or an Instagram message or a Facebook message or whatnot?
I believe it was Jeremy Langlois. He had messaged me through Instagram and just welcomed me to the team. I think Jake Squires had also reached out. I had been talking to Cam Squires kind of once we both got drafted as well. So kind of a mix of everyone. I think Connor Trenholm had texted me as well. And it was pretty cool just to have those guys who've been in the league for a couple of years reach out. It is a pretty cool feeling and really welcome me to Cape Breton.
What is your favorite pair of shoes, or do you have a favorite pair of shoes? What can you tell me about them?
I'm not a huge shoe guy. I got a couple pairs, but in the summers, I'm a big Birkenstock guy. They're easy to slip on, so I think right now I got to go that because it's my go-to right now.
What's the funniest thing you've seen happen at a hockey game, whether it was one you were playing in or one you were watching as a fan?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think here.
Don't know if we really had anything that stood out last year as being unusual.
No, I remember, I think it was in Pee Wee or Bantam. It was in a tournament where we were watching the game in front of us, and it was in overtime and went down 2-on-2, I think, and the team pulled their goalie, and so they made it 3-on-2 in overtime, and then the other team ended up scoring on the empty net. So it's kind of a weird moment. It was a big risk, and it didn't work out.
I think that was probably a scenario where if they got into a 2-on-2, the coach was probably almost tired of the game. Let's pull the goaltender. Someone's going to score. Hopefully it's us. And I guess it wasn't.
Yeah, 3-on-2 is a good advantage. It's definitely a calculated risk, and it didn't work out for them.
So we're getting into the weeds here, asking some kind of off-the-board questions. There's always talk about exploration to other planets and whatnot. If humans were to settle on Mars, if you're naming the first city on Mars, what's Luke calling it? I tried to warn you, we're going way off the board.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Maybe name it after yourself.
Yeah, I think I'd go off the board. I think I'd shout out to my roommate, Angela Fullerton. I'd call it Fully Land.
All right, we should trade Fully Town, space exploration, bookmark it. That's your first city on Mars. What is Luke's earliest memory of watching hockey?
I think just watching the Leafs growing up. Obviously, when I was a young kid, there wasn't a ton of success. I remember the breakdown against Boston, the 4-1 lead there. I remember that one pretty vividly. And I think live, just growing up in Moncton, watching the Wildcats, and they were the highest level of hockey we had in Moncton. So I definitely watched a lot of that growing up and dreamed of playing in the Q.
I like to ask questions like this to you guys. Makes me feel a little bit older. Does Luke have any memories of watching standard definition television growing up? Were you always a HD guy?
I don't remember ever watching anything other than HD.
Your first year in the Q, who was the toughest goaltender you had to play against? Sometimes that might come down to maybe if you're in a slump or maybe if you're hot. That might skew your perspective.
I think I answered this question last year, and I'm going to give the exact same answer with LaPena.
Yes.
He was in Charlottetown the first half. We played him a couple times for sure, and he stole a couple games against us, and I don't believe I scored on him. So, I mean, he obviously went out to Gatineau at the deadline and stuff, but he's a great talent.
He comes up a lot in this, I think, and for good reason. That was the reason Gatineau paid a big price to get him. What is something you think people pretend to like, but they don't? Maybe you can judge based on personal experience.
Yeah, maybe just a generalized food or something that they're too kind of shy to say, yeah, I don't like it. So they just kind of go along with it. But deep down, they're not a big fan of it. But
that's all for part 1 of 10 questions with Eagles forward Luke Patterson. You're listening to the intermission of Celtic Abode, Cape Breton Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.